Hey y'all, it is I, Anthony the Canadian Guy, and welcome to Wrestlesode, the solution to your wrestling information problems. Wrestlesode is a member of the Win Column Sports Network, so remember to check us out at wincolumnsports.ca to be kept up to date on everything happening here in Alberta in the world of wrestling. Today, I have an interview with the Cowboy Bryn Watts, wrestling down there in Lethbridge for PPW. This guy is an incredible performer. I was so excited to talk to this guy. One half of the Bad Seeds, obviously. I had my interview on Tuesday, drop with the Stormbringer, and today we get the Cowboy. This Saturday, we will be talking with both of them to collective as the Bad Seeds, and it's going to be an amazing talk. I had a lot of fun with both of these, all three of these interviews, actually. So I hope you guys will be enjoying this here today. But before we do get into that, just a couple of quick things to note. This Saturday, we are going to be holding the North Alberta Invitational. We're not going to be holding it. We're going to be having it live and premiered on YouTube at the Wrestling Rodeo YouTube account, so check out the links below. You're going to want to tune in for that. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I had a lot of fun working on it, and I really hope that all of you will get a chance to enjoy this as much as I did. So, so I can't wait to see you guys all on Saturday. Hope to see you there. And so we're just going to be hearing from our sponsors over at the Win Column Sports Network, and then we'll get straight into our interview here with the Cowboy.
Hello friends, this is Spencer Love interrupting your regularly scheduled podcast experience to remind you to tune in to wincolumnsports.ca every Wednesday for Conversations with Love, the one-on-one interview podcast featuring the best of the best in Canadian pro wrestling and available wherever podcasts are played. Tune in to CWL on the WCSN for your previews, reviews, breaking news, and now interviews, proudly brought to you by Beercade YEG.
Hey everybody, Anthony here. I am joined today with the Cowboy, Bryn Watts. Sorry, I can't do it nearly as good as the Stormbringer, but Bryn, how are you doing today?
I am doing pretty well.
That's fantastic. Well, I wanted to start off here. I totally forgot to ask Stormbringer, but with this COVID-19 situation, how's everything treating you? How's everything going for you today?
It's pretty much business as usual for me.
Well, that's good.
Training hard, and working my ass off. All the good stuff.
Just missing the wrestling ring at the end of the day. I guess that's the one, right?
Missing the wrestling ring.
Yeah, I get that.
I'm watching all the other guys not doing anything, and I'm making sure that I'm staying in prime shape and ready to rock when things get rolling again.
Yeah, I think when the world turns back on, we're going to have a lot of really hungry people wanting to do some really cool stuff happening here in wrestling. So let's talk a little bit about the Cowboy, Bryn Watts. Cowboy, so where did it all start for you? When you go back into the past, where did you fall in love with wrestling?
Probably fell in love with wrestling. Probably, I would say the Attitude Era is probably what caught my attention the most. Wrestling kind of was always in the background for my entire life. But I would say the Attitude Era is probably what caught my attention. And yeah, just over-the-top personalities. And as time went on, kind of started to explore backwards into the history of pro wrestling, started to fall in love with characters like Mr. Perfect and Ric Flair and the Hulk Hogan's and those types of performers, and started to really fall in love with the performance aspect of pro wrestling as opposed to just watching it on television every week. And eventually got into watching it live and became a performer myself, and the rest is history.
Well, let's dive into a little bit of specifics with that then. So you said you kind of got into the Attitude Era. When you look back at the Attitude Era, do you have any matches that really stand out to you as like, oh man, that was like a highlight to my childhood?
No, I don't think there's any matches that really stick out in my mind. I think it's just more the over-top personalities.
It's always the characters.
The Triple H's and the Rocks and the Austins, right? You remember the big moments that they had, the big beer bath and things of that nature, and the confrontation between Austin and McMahon, and the McMahon-Helmsley era, and just those kind of moments. But I don't think there's really any matches per se that stick out in my mind.
It's funny you say that, because when you look back at the Attitude Era, I think you're right. I think it's less the matches than it really was the story surrounding it, because when you think back to like a Triple H match during the Attitude Era, is there any that really stick out, or is it like him driving Stephanie McMahon through a drive-through wedding thing and getting married or something like that, or like, crashing Test's wedding? Like, I mean, maybe it's those moments that really stick out to you, I guess, in the Attitude Era.
Yeah, like I remember Triple H and Cactus Jack having a big thing.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was a good.
Do I remember the series of matches they had? No, not really. But I remember that the feud was incredible.
Was there a favorite feud that you have of all time?
Ooh, favorite feud of all time.
I'm asking the hard-hitting questions here.
Yeah, that's a big one. Honestly, nothing that I can really think of off the top of my head. I think there's a handful of feuds out there that are pretty amazing. I mean, we're talking about the Attitude Era, but Austin McMahon is probably the first thing that comes to my mind just based on what we're talking about.
Right.
Right. That really kind of defined that moment in time and really changed the wrestling industry. And
it really was a defining feud. I in terms of like the feuds that go down in history as like the history defining feuds, Austin McMahon is definitely going to be in the top 5, probably.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
Yeah. So when you started transitioning into the world of actually wanting to go from, kid watching wrestling to I'm actually going to wrestle, how did you start breaking into the industry that way?
So I was working at the time, and I found out that there was a local show, a Power Zone wrestling show that had just started running. I think I ended up making it to the 3rd or 4th show. Watched it, thought it was incredible, came back to the next show, watched it, thought it was incredible, and reached out to the people that were running it, who happened to be the Stormbringer, and threw my name in the hat to be trained, and eventually got the call and was able to start bumping and start learning.
That's how it went, hey?
Yeah, it was an interesting journey.
So when you first got into the ring for the very first time, like, what was running through your head? Were you like, is this really what I want to be doing? Or was it more like, I got to do this, let's get going, I want to take some bumps?
No, I remember being super excited. It was kind of transitioning from the Attitude Era to the Ruthless Aggression Era, so there was a lot of violence on TV. And, that was pretty invigorating as a 19-year-old kid at the time. And I just remember really, really wanting to be able to do that. And I remember thinking it would be so cool if, I ended up on thumbtacks one day, or if I ended up getting hit by a chair one day, right? Like some of those really, really weird things that you think about when you want to get into pro wrestling, especially at that time. And stepping into the ring for the first time, it is incredible how you go from I want to be hit in the head with a chair to I don't want to hit this mat because I just smacked my head and it hurts like hell.
They always say your first couple of bumps are always the worst because you haven't worked up.
My first 1,000 weren't that great.
I'm sure even the next 1,000 aren't always the best, to be honest.
You get a little bit better.
You get a little bit better at them.
A little bit better with each one.
So how did it come out to your?
Just learn to take less of them.
There you go. I'm just going to start beating them up so they're taking all the bumps.
Exactly.
So after you were training for a little while, how long was it before you actually got into your first match?
Probably pretty close to a year. I would say 9 months to a year. I was able to break into the industry as a ring announcer.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to be in front of the crowd all of the time, and I was able to kind of polish some mic skills. And that was probably one of the biggest learning experiences for me, was just to be able to be out there and watch some, guys that have been on the indies for, some of them decades, some of them a handful of years, some of them coming out of Storm's camp. I kind of got to watch everything right from ringside, and that's kind of how I got into it. And then, I would say about 9 months into my training is when I was able to actually start getting into the ring a little bit.
Do you remember much about your first match?
It was a 6-man tag, and I wasn't supposed to be in it.
Okay.
And there was a guy, I think he went by the name Mikey Whipwreck. Or no, whatever. I don't even remember his name. We called him Whipwreck. And he was being pissy and decided to no-show. So there was one less person that was able to compete in the 6-man tag match. And since I was there and since I had been trained, I got thrown into it. And it was the main event. And got a little bit. I got the main event, my debut match, and it was pretty cool.
How did it go for you? A lot of people always say, their first match was horrible. Some people say, I don't really remember. Some people went, it actually was okay. How did it go for you?
Yeah, my first match, I don't think I was actually in the ring for a good chunk of it. I think I was probably tagged in maybe once or twice, got in a few spots, and that was about it.
Mm-hmm.
It was unique because I wasn't terrified like a lot of people are for the first match, because I was already out at ringside every show all the time.
Right.
I already had a relationship with the fans. I already was a character. So it was a little bit easier for me to just kind of jump into it. Again, I don't really remember the specifics of the match. I remember it was a really cool moment that I wasn't supposed to be there. I got to be there. And it was the freaking main event. And it's where I belong.
Apparently, because, as we saw in the most recent, at the Power Rumble, we got to see you show off incredibly well as definitely being what I would consider the longest lasting character inside of the Rumble. Unfortunately, making it to the second last, being eliminated by Travis the Heap Copeland after obviously cheating tactics after coming back after being thrown off the top rope. Obviously, right? Obviously. But you've been obviously wrestling now for a little bit. You've had your first match. How long was it before you take your first thumbtack bump? Did you actually take one?
Yes.
Yes. So was it everything you wanted?
It was a really, really cool moment at the time. It's not one I would do again. It was actually Stormbringer who spine busted me onto those thumbtacks.
Oh.
Which, hurt. He's a big guy. I would say, that was probably about a year and a half into my wrestling career that I got to have that hardcore match moment.
So
There were several that followed after, but.
Would you say you enjoy doing the hardcore matches at all, or would you definitely say you just prefer your average, like just no weapon kind of match?
No, I think I've aged as a performer in the sense that I get more pleasure out of pointing to my ear to get people to boo me than I do jumping off a ladder and crashing to the floor.
Hey, that's totally fine.
It's neat that I have those moments, right? Getting hit in the head with a chair and power bombed on the floor and going through a table and falling off the ladder. Now I prefer telling stories. If I'm going to be in a ladder match, how do you tell this story without a ladder in the ladder match?
I love that. I actually said this exact same expression to the Stormbringer during our interview was that if you're moving, people will watch you, but if you're interesting, people will wait for you to move.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I definitely think that once people, especially people after the 7-8 year mark, you really tend to see that out of performers. Like obviously you and Stormbringer have been incredibly tenured in the ring. You guys have been doing this now for over 10 years. Looking back into your past, I mean, I think your first match was, I want to say 2007? 5. Wow. See, I can't even get the correct information online. So you're looking at a 15-year tenure here. And
yeah. And truthfully for me, I wrestled from 2005 to about 2010, and then I took time off until probably 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And I just watched a really quick interview with Edge talking about his comeback, and he was talking about how life is kind of like climbing 2 mountains. The first mountain is kind of making it for yourself, and the second mountain is giving back to what got you to the first mountaintop. And the second little run in PPW is kind of my second mountain. It's pretty cool to have done everything I wanted to do in that first 5-year period, and now really being able to try and perform and bring that out of the younger guys so that they can reach their first mountaintop.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know you had your feud last year with Jumpin' Josh over that Cruiserweight Championship down there in PPW. And pardon?
I did.
Yeah. And I know you've obviously got your eyes set there on that Heavyweight Championship with everything that was going on there in the Rumble. So when looking forward, obviously, what are some things you would love to accomplish in wrestling outside, not just saying look past PPW, but as an overall performer, what are some things you would love to be doing as a wrestler?
I think you just say it. The PPW Heavyweight Championship is the paychecks are bigger when you're the champion. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what we're in there for, is to make our money.
Right.
So, yeah, gold around my waist. I don't really have anything specific. I want gold around my waist.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm a talent that I think deserves it. I don't think I'm given the proper opportunities for it. The feud with Jumping Josh is an example. I held the belt for 9-10 months, lost it in a gimmick match, never got a rematch.
Now, that's obviously some crap right there. We got to start petitioning because we got to see you get that rematch. Agree. But obviously, you're going to be wanting to go for the Heavyweight Championship. So is it that we're going to be wanting to see, Bryn 2 belts? Is that what we're going to be seeing? Cowboy 2 belts?
The bad seeds definitely have an agenda, and I'm not going to share what the agenda is at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
The Heavyweight Championship at the moment is on a performer, Sydney Steele, that I have a lot of respect for. Travis the Heat Copeland is going to be challenging for that after he threw me over the top rope. Definitely not rooting for Travis to win, but there is a little bit more interest in me and Bringer to want to go after somebody like THC than a Sydney Steele.
Now, I obviously want to talk to you guys a little bit more during your tag team interview, but obviously I have questions that have to do with the Rumble. But we'll get to that obviously when we get there. But let's bring it back a little bit, back to your training days once again. So when you look back, you said you got trained by the Stormbringer, but is there any really big pieces of advice that when you look back, like that was like my quintessential wrestling piece of advice that you remember?
Slow down.
Sorry.
No, not you. That's the advice.
Oh, that is...
Slow down.
You know what? That's funny because that's everybody's advice.
I get reminded all of the time. Slow down.
You know what's funny? I should take my own advice because I hear that one so much. Everybody's like, if you think you're taking a long time in the ring, take longer.
Yeah, and there's moments looking back, even at some of my more recent stuff, where I felt like it took a long time, and I thought the timing was good, and watching it back, could have milked it for another 5 seconds, and it would have been better. But I'm getting pretty good at taking my time and being more calculated in what I do.
So I hear a lot from a lot of people around, and obviously I'm not going to drop a whole bunch of names here, but a lot of people look to you as like an incredible talent that is down there in Lethbridge that they want to see expand past the Lethbridge scene. And like I said, we're not looking past PPW, but is there any plans to see you wrestle anywhere else around Alberta or even outside of Alberta?
I've done a little bit. I honestly don't really like it.
No? You like the more of the local feeling, you like your crowds, your venues, things like that?
I think I'm really good. And I think with being really good, if you're meant to make it, you're going to get found. And if it's meant to be that I go elsewhere, it's going to be because somebody came to me. Other than that, I just want to be the best I can here. And like I said, for me, this is kind of my second mountain journey. I look forward to telling stories with guys that are looking to have really cool moments so that they can have interviews 10 years from now with people like you.
That's awesome.
That's important.
Is there anybody inside of Alberta that you would love to have a match against that, just like as a personal, like, oh, I would just love to wrestle this person or this person? Is there anybody that you feel like I would love to have that match?
As a one-off, probably Kyle Sebastian.
Oh, that would be really great.
I broke into the business with Kyle Sebastian. We both started training in, I believe, 2005.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, Kyle was 16, and if you talk to anybody I chatted with, I thought he was probably the best performer in Southern Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
You fast forward to 2010, Kyle's traveling the indie scene, and if you talk to anybody I talked to that asked me who I thought was really good, I would tell you that I thought Kyle Sebastian was the best in Canada.
Okay.
You fast forward to 2015, Kyle's traveled the world. He's been to Japan. You ask anybody I would talk to, I would tell you that Kyle Sebastian is probably one of the best in the world. You fast forward to 2020, I think Kyle's lost his step. I'm in my prime, and I'd kick his ass.
Oh, I like this. I would love to see this match because I was talking to Sydney Steele, and I said, what was the best match that nobody ever saw? And he said he once saw you wrestle a match against Kyle Sebastian. It was just like a training match. It was like a 35-minute, and it was like an epic long thing. And I was like, I wish I could have seen something like that. He specifically said you versus Kyle Sebastian, best non-scene match ever.
I would agree.
I would love to see that. So, hey, to the powers that be down there in PPW, if we're going to be seeing a match that's non-title, that we just want to see something that's amazing, I would love to see that myself. If I get that choice, I'm going down for that match.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So it's 2020 now. Obviously, wrestling has taken a bit of a break at this very moment. But when wrestling kind of normalizes once again, you're getting back into the ring. Like, what kind of stuff would you love to focus on? Like, where's some, like, aside from, like, the heavyweight championships and stuff, is there anything, like, a personal goal that you would love to do?
I just want to tell the best stories possible. I don't really have a specific story in mind. And like I said before, Bringer and I, we chat constantly, and we kind of have our own game plans on what we think we should be doing. At this stage, I'm just enjoying being engaging, right? Like, if it's cutting a promo in an empty mall talking about my little Willie, or if
I saw that video, that was hilarious, by the way.
Right, or if it's I really, really enjoyed the ladder match I had with Jumpin' Josh. I think that was one of my favorite pieces of work. I'd love to have more of those moments where guys are up and coming, and I can put us into a position where we have a blow-off match that people are going to remember. And that match in particular, I didn't come out on top.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember the pop at the end was one of the biggest pops I had heard in an indie wrestling building, period. And I just look forward to more of those really cool moments.
When you look back at your career that you've had now, like you said, you took a bit of a break, but you've had countless matches. Outside of the one that you were talking about with Jumpin' Josh, do you have any like highlights that really stand out as like career highlights for you?
I mean, way back in the day, some of the violent stuff we did was really cool. I had a couple Texas death matches that stand out. Just, not many people, A, have the balls to do pro wrestling, and B, have the balls to take the kind of physical punishment that something like a Texas death match would bring to the table. So I think that's pretty cool. There was... If you want to go back and watch a pretty cool Cowboy versus Sebastian match, there was two of them that stand out in my mind. One, we had a kiss my ass match.
Okay.
That was really good. And there was one that was a qualifying match for the PZW Heavyweight Championship, and I think that was probably my best match with Sebastian.
Well, that sounds amazing, and all that. And I know that you guys over at PPW, you have the TV show, obviously, and as well as the YouTube channel. Is that stuff that could be found there?
Yeah, I would imagine you could probably.
Well, we'll take a look for it, definitely.
Way back in the day, the quality I don't think was as good, so you'll probably have to squint at the screen a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the newer stuff, I had a 30-minute Broadway with THC, which I thought was phenomenal. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's any other standout moments for me. I just like pushing the bar, right? Like a lot of indie guys like to just go and collect their paycheck and do as little as possible. I like to push the boundaries a little bit.
Totally, yeah. That's amazing. I always like when people are never just content with getting something done. They always want to go a little extra. Do you know what I mean?
Well, if you're going to be doing it, do it.
Yeah, you're going to do it, but do it well, right? Like no point in putting effort into something that you're only going to half-ass. So I have a quick question here for you. So getting to know you obviously as a person as well, what other interests do you have outside of wrestling?
I am an entrepreneur. I enjoy business. I enjoy making money. I think that's why I like pro wrestling so much, is I think Vince McMahon is probably the greatest entrepreneur of all time. I really look up to him in how he is able to creatively shift in any given moment and profit from it. And yeah, it's pretty much how I spend my time, is working and making money
and wrestling.
Learning. I enjoy learning. I enjoy learning and being creative, and that's what I like about business.
Did you go to school for any of that?
No.
No?
I got kicked out of school twice.
You got kicked out?
I got kicked out of university twice.
I want to say, is there a good story around that?
No, it was just a waste of time and a waste of money.
Hey,
nobody does it.
Hey, well, you said you're an entrepreneur, so like, if you could really give a piece of advice to somebody out there who's like looking to start something, and I know everybody's just the first piece of advice people get is just do it, but besides that, let's say somebody's out there as an entrepreneur yourself, besides just doing it, what's the biggest piece of advice you'd like to give to somebody?
You have to like some part of the process.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So, like, as an example, we're sitting in a restaurant right now that I own. It's pretty cool. I like the food industry. Is it my passion in life? No, my passion is to be creative, which is why I think I'm a good performer. Owning the business allows me creative freedom, and that's what I like. If I didn't enjoy that aspect of it, the amount of crap that you have to put up with in running a business of any sort is, like, it's incredible. Like, it's incredibly stressful on a day-to-day basis how often you get punched in the mouth with little crap that you would never think of. And if there's not a piece that makes you wake up in the morning to want to go do it, you're never going to do it well. And I think I do it pretty well.
So I got a question for you then. So what food do you recommend down there in Lethbridge? Any restaurants you might recommend?
Right now, just us, because nowhere else has the balls to be open.
Well, fair enough. What's the name of your restaurant? That's what I was trying to get at.
It's called Round Table. So we're a board game restaurant cafe. The restaurant side is more where I flourish, and then my business partner Casey takes care of the board game end of things.
That's awesome. That sounds like the type of place I'd like to visit.
It's a fantastic place. You should come visit.
Next time I'm in Lethbridge, I'll come down. That's where I will go for dinner and some old school 1990s board games that I tend to adore.
Perfect.
Fantastic. So a couple questions more here for you before we do let you go here today. Looking back on your all the different feuds and everything that you have, is there a favorite feud that you've had?
Oh boy. Stormbringer and I back in the day had a really, really cool feud. I would say I wouldn't be the Cowboy today without the feud with the Stormbringer.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, probably the run with Jumpin' Josh is probably up there as my favorite feud.
What was the whole feud between you and Stormbringer about? Obviously, I'm going to touch a little bit more about it on our tag team interview here in a little bit, but I got to get some dirt now.
Quite honestly, I don't really remember. He's a very emotional being that tends to get angry for unknown reasons at some time. I seem to remember had something to do with a girl. It typically always has something to do with a girl.
Well, hey, I mean, you know what? Some of the best storylines in wrestling have had taken place just over a girl.
He may have been handcuffed to the ring post, and I may have hit him with a steel chair. That also
may have happened. But there's no proof, though, right? Obviously.
Well, there might be some proof.
So it definitely happened then. Do you have a dream match that you would love to compete in? Like a stipulation or anything in specific that you would just love to wrestle in?
I've kind of always wanted to do a cage match just because it's the one gimmick match where I really haven't been a part of. So I always thought a cage match would be cool. At this stage in the game, I'm really curious if I can go Iron Man. I'd love to do a 60-minute Iron Man.
I think that would be amazing to see. Who do you think you would be Kyle Sebastian you'd love to see on the other side of the ring from you in an Iron Man match?
You know what? I think I think pretty much every talent in PPW could go an hour with me, and I would appreciate the opportunity with any one of them.
That would be super cool to see. So, as a restaurant entrepreneur as well as a wrestler yourself, I have to ask, like, do you often host like the after shows, or do you get people coming over and having like drinks at the pub every so often at the restaurant? Like, do you get to hang or host all the cool hangout spots?
The after show is held at Round Table. Typically, the wrestlers roll in about 10 o'clock, but fans sometimes start coming in, after the show and have a couple drinks. And hang out and have a good time.
All right, only a couple more questions here for you.
All right.
We'll just kind of rapid fire them out. Looking throughout history, there's been a million different types of championships, be it a belt or a shield or a sword or whatever it is. There's been millions of different championships. If you could ever say that you wanted to hold or carry any one of those belts or be like the champion for any one championship, what would you love to say, is the Cowboys championship?
First and foremost, probably the PPW Heavyweight Championship, because that's going to actually line my pocket. If we're talking about a historical championship, I would say the IC title, probably around the time Mr. Perfect had it.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's a great choice. You and Mitch Clark and Dewey Robson have all said that exact same IC title as well, which is a good choices.
Great belt.
Pardon?
It's a great belt.
It is a great belt. It's a very beautiful belt. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different wrestling promotions, the major wrestling promotions. I know you said you're not necessarily interested in changing what you're doing right now in terms of wrestling, but let's say AEW or NWA or WWE was on the other line of a phone and was offering you a contract. Who would you like to be on the other end of that line?
Ooh. I would be grateful for the opportunity regardless. I think creatively, I could have some pretty killer matches in AEW. Like, off the top of my head, I would love a run with Jungle Boy. I think.
Oh, that would be so cool.
I would bring a lot out of him. I think, Stormbringer and I as a tag team would bring a lot out of him and Luchasaurus. Quite frankly, we would just kill the dinosaur and attack the caveman.
Oh, please use that in a promo if that ever happens.
And yeah, I think there would be more creative freedom for me in a place like AEW or Impact. And at this stage, with not really wanting to make it, the money would be less important to me, and the opportunity to just flourish creatively would be more what I'd be looking after.
Kind of like a Matt Hardy right now. He's like, it's not about the money. I want to be able to tell my stories.
Yeah, and I mean, he's lucky in the sense that he was able to make his money and collect royalties from WWE. Like he has the best of both worlds. Right
yes,
now, right?
He's very comfortable, I would say.
Yeah, he's set himself up, and he's a great talent.
Now that COVID-19 has really messed up the kind of situation where people aren't really wrestling right now, there's a lot of empty arenas and there's a lot of creativity coming out in things like WrestleMania with the Firefly Funhouse match or the Boneyard match. What kind of creative things do you think we'll be seeing coming out of wrestling if, let's say, wrestling doesn't get back to normal in the next couple of months? What do you think the next evolution of wrestling would be?
I hope that they do a little bit more of that. Like the Boneyard match in particular was really, really cool in that it hid some of the weaknesses that the Undertaker has at his age.
Right.
And it provides the opportunity for movie-like quality matches to give us maybe something like Undertaker versus Sting, which would never be able to happen now, but could happen in an environment like that. It reopens the door creatively to what would happen if an AJ Styles wrestled a Hulk Hogan, because now you can hide whatever weaknesses there is between the two of them and actually deliver that. So it's going to be more of a movie format, and I think pro wrestling, the way we know it, is best with an audience in front of it. But if you look back at like the empty arena match that was between Mankind and The Rock, vastly different in my opinion than the empty arena match we had between Edge and Orton.
Yeah, I would 100% say that. I really liked what they're doing right now with the whole different types of what I'm calling cinematic wrestling. Because it, like you said, it gives life to a couple of these old part-timers that really can't keep it in the ring anymore. It gives them a place to shine, because I think personally that Undertaker match against AJ Styles was his best match in many, many years. He didn't need to worry so much about, how much he was lifting or how long he could, go for it in the ring. He just had to worry about putting on a performance. And obviously being as experienced in storytelling as he is, it shone past some of the matches he's had lately.
And I think the other thing it's going to do is a lot of guys, when they break into the business now, they want to do all the flippy-dippy crap, right? They want to be able to do, and that's probably my biggest criticism with a product like AEW is it's about the spots more than it is about the performance aspect of it. Which now there's no sense in doing 5 flips in a row when there's no crowd to react, right? So now you have to reinvent who you are as a performer and actually learn how to perform. And if this goes on for a long time, I think it will do the wrestling industry a lot of good, that new guys coming up have to focus on the theatrical aspect of things as opposed to the athletic aspect of things.
Do you think because of this situation where people are becoming a little bit more creative and we're seeing these more cinematic matches, do you think that's a way that it can kind of rebranch back out into the mainstream of wrestling again? Because, and I'll be 100% honest, wrestling clearly isn't where it was in the Attitude Era. I don't go outside and see everybody croc chopping or doing all these cool wrestling moves on playgrounds anymore. Unfortunately, it's fallen out of prominence, but do you think this could be a way for them to break it back in because everybody loves cinema?
Yeah, I mean, possibly. I think that's definitely a possibility. Like I said, I think for me the biggest thing is it's going to make a lot of the younger talent have to focus on the performance as opposed to the athletics. And I think that will do pro wrestling a lot of good.
And this is another great point as to show that wrestling really is a lot more than just what goes into the ring, because right now, more than ever, promos are just as important because you're not getting that in-ring action. And I think a great person to be looking at for something like that is in AEW right now would be a Jake the Snake Roberts. That guy can talk, and he doesn't ever have to step in a ring again. And you just go I just want to listen to Jake talk more. And I think that's a great way of looking at it.
Yep, I would agree.
So before we do let you go here today, what else? No, sorry, I just looked at the wrong note again. Before we do let you go here today, where can people find you? Plug your stuff there, Bryn. Like, where can people find the Cowboy?
So if we are looking at Instagram, you're going to look for the Cowboy BW. And if you are looking for me on Facebook, I believe it is the Cowboy Bryn Watts.
Fantastic.
Cowboy Bryn Watts. There we go. At Cowboy Bryn Watts.
There you go. Before we let you go, you got anything else you'd like to say out there to the people listening?
No, make sure when pro wrestling is able to run again, you buy a ticket and watch me beat some people up.
I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me here today, Cowboy. I hope you have yourself a wonderful day. And, of course, we will chat with you soon.
I will certainly have a wonderful day.
All right. Bye-bye. A big thank you once again to the Cowboy for joining me here today. It was an amazing experience to talk to him and then, of course, talk to the Stormbringer. And then this Saturday, I'm excited to bring to you guys my interview with the Bad Seeds as a collective. We talk about how they started to get tagging together, you know, their stories so far, some of their best matches, and, of course, what's moving on for the Bad Seeds. A lot of really interesting stuff happening down there in Lethbridge before all this COVID-19 stuff started. So we get to continue to touch on those storylines, and it'll be a lot of fun. So I'll see you guys all on Saturday. Remember to check out the North Alberta Invitational, and don't forget to check out the WCSN on Patreon. Now we are on Patreon at patreon.com/the WCSN. Anything that you want to give does help out and goes a long way to help out stuff here at the WCSN. But of course, don't feel pressured. Everything is always going to remain free. Just if you want to get some content a little bit earlier, that's the way to do it. Thank you all so much for listening here today, and I hope you have yourself a wonderful day.